We talked a little bit more about just different types of government, and then they just had to write what country did they get, what type of government do they have, who's the head of that government, what's the population, and then to give me a fun fact about it. And then I made them stand up and kind of tell the class a little bit about it.
Okay.
And it was a lot of the guys were, oh wow, like one of the girls like, yeah, in Cuba's a communist country, and people were, given this and this and this, but they can't do this, and the kids were pretty into it. So, yeah. But we only got to about 2 people.
Yeah.
And so tomorrow we'll start, let the rest share. I'm gonna make them all share.
So the timing was just a little.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right, well, I'm gonna try to keep this under 20 minutes.
Okay.
That's a goal. So, so first of all, there are a lot of good things that went well when I was in. I came in about 5 minutes late, but when I came in, the students were discussing, basically, they were identifying what a government is, what types of government they are, and so that was really good to see just that opportunity for discussion, because I know that's something we've been working on in small groups. And then you randomized who's going to share, which I thought was a good move, because we've been talking about the roles and stuff like that. And that kid who always has his head down, did you see what he looked like today?
Yeah, he's so I found out, and this was kind of a little creative move on my part. I sat that girl next to him, and one of his buddies who sits over here was like, "Hey man, he is, whatever." He's like, "Yeah, he has a really big crush on that girl and stuff." So he likes her.
Yeah.
And so I sat her next to him, and ever since I did that, the head down is now up, and he's like, he actually the other day was the first time he ever turned anything in.
Wow.
And because I paired him with her, and he actively work with her and talk to her and do stuff. So I know it's like a weird way to go about it, but I mean, so far it's kind of working.
Yeah, I saw him smile. I saw him smile today,
Yeah.
and I saw him talking with the group, and I'd never seen that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a success moment right there.
And she initially didn't want to go sit over there because she was sitting with her little group of friends. But I just told her, I said, you need to be right here, because she also constantly needs to be reminded to stay on task. So it's easy for her to be right there with me, and she asks me for a lot of help all the time, so it's just easier. And so she was cool with it, and then she's kind of becoming friends with him, and I think she's helping him stay. They're kind of helping each other, so it seems like it's working.
Good. Yeah, man. Nice move. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep it up. So how did the group work feel today on that specific section when I was here?
Same thing. I think I gave them the opportunities for conversation. I just think they're not as, they're thinking more of probably just something they haven't really been exposed to yet. Too much about world governments and what I was trying to get them to think of. Of course, they kind of know about United States government because we briefly went over that.
Yeah.
So mainly everything that they were thinking about was U.S. centered, which we're about to get into more of a world government type of view, just all the different types there are. But I do think for the most part they were working, they were talking, they were on topic, and they were trying to kind of come up with a response. And I think the last question was the only one, and that the one that said what types of government there are in the world. And I was kind of expecting to be, if there was going to be one question, they probably couldn't answer that one because we hadn't gone over it yet.
Yeah.
So that was me just kind of seeing what they kind of knew about the world already, and seeing if they knew anything besides a democracy, which most of them did not.
So yeah, I mean, that having that task at the beginning of the class, letting them talk to each other and hearing their responses, is going to give you an opportunity to see what they know, so you get to highlight that specific information. So I think if you continue doing things like this, it's going to work for your benefit. But you said that you weren't quite happy necessarily with the responses because it was somewhat limited, or it revealed that their background knowledge was a little bit limited.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering, how could we maximize this time so that they're using it to learn as much as possible, so that they could carry that knowledge with them throughout the unit. And so I'm wondering, what were the students doing during that discussion? After they had discussed, what were they doing? What were they physically doing while that discussion was taking place?
Pretty much just listen to whatever response was going on. Maybe I should have had them Another good idea is write down the other group's response so they can kind of see not just what's on their paper, they can physically write something down. But usually when someone responded, they were all basically just listening, and then that was about it. So.
Okay. So they're listening, and then what you brought up, I thought, was having them write down something. That would make it a more of an active listening type of activity, so they could think about what they have and then continue constructing their knowledge. So like, why don't we like either write it there or here, just like promote active listening during discussion. And I think we'll practice that. Say like, what could we do to help make that happen immediately after the group work happens.
Okay.
So promote active listening, and so you had them share by calling on random students,
Yeah.
which was great because they had to have those conversations in order for that person to speak, hopefully. And I saw you pick the student with the longest hair, and that kid had the shortest hair. Did you do it because of that? Because he had like the shortest hair?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I just remember that was actually the reason I did that, because we had a PLC the other day, and that's just kind of the lady that was teaching us about using different strategies to pick randomizing. That's just the example she used. It's the first one that popped in my head, so I used it. But I just think that's a good way, because if I don't do something like that, then it's going to be the same kids always talking and answering.
Right.
So maybe next time in that class we'll say person with the shortest hair, person wearing the darkest shirt or something like that. I think that might be, yeah.
Keep it up. So they, in the groups, they wrote first, they talked second, you called on a random student, and then I was wondering, like, well, what are the other students doing who are not speaking? Well, through our discussion, you said we could have them write it down. But I'm also wondering if, while students are sharing, we also instruct them to listen for anything they could agree with, disagree with, or if there's anything they want to add on to it.
Okay, yeah, so give them opportunities to kind of feed off of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had some sentence stems over there, right, that we helped with their responses. I wonder if we could also have something else, some other visual cue that would help them agree or disagree with what they're saying. Because you asked a question, they gave a response, and then you move to another question, right? But, which is great, but there may have been other people
with different answers, different responses that could have created more discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that may be a difference between the listening to active to critical listening for a purpose, listening for a specific purpose.
Okay.
And so I think that may help just add that interaction to it and help them process this information so they can ultimately do more with the information.
Okay.
Which if we're working on critical reading, writing, and speaking, well, then we want to maximize some of those interactions.
Okay.
So, what do we write down before?
Promote active listening during discussion.
Okay, so